Welcome to a ProFootballDoc Sports Injury Central podcast. Very, very special guest today. Busy man. It probably is your 37th radio, TV, Pat McAfee, you name it hit. So we appreciate you coming on. The one and only Rap Sheet, Ian Rapoport, Insider, Ultimate, NFL Network, etc. Welcome to the show.
What's going on, man? How are you? It's been a little bit of a busy day, yes, but I'm happy to be on with you. What's up?
Is there ever a non-busy day? I mean, come on. I mean, you're always look.
Yeah, non-busy days exist, but the problem is there's always a possibility that it could get busy. So like, it's never like my phone's over there, I'll get it later. It's always like I'll keep it here just in case this non-busyness ever changes, which it always does. Any
minute, right? Same with football. When I was a team doctor on the sideline. We got nothing to do. All of a sudden, like all hands on deck, and we're going crazy a little bit. As a matter of fact, the last time we had you on, and it's been a little while, too long. My apologies. You were in the middle of it, and I don't know if you remember this. You literally were in the middle of it, and you said, "I gotta go." Odell Beckham breaking trade news. You had to work on closing that. That was the last time that you were on. So right now, we're lucky to have you. So. Thank you for joining us.
That was several teams ago. That seems like so long ago, man.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
I know, Giants. I know, but I still remember. Look, see, I gave you a reprieve for years, and I thought preseason would be a little easier for you instead of in season, but never a quiet time. Our guys here, as you were waiting to come on, and we appreciate it. No big deal. But they were wondering to make sure that. You didn't get beaten up by J.K. Dobbins, in the meantime. We're
looking out for you.
Yeah, that was an interesting situation. And, I was on with McAfee kind of talking about that. And I think a lot of people, I know everyone, of course, everyone texts me. Anytime a player will publicly respond, everyone texts me, and they sort of will act like it upsets me. It really doesn't. Like, one of the main things about doing this job is you put out things publicly, and then you don't get to decide how people react. You just report it as it is, as you know it, based on your sources. And however the reaction is, the reaction is. And as long as you trust what you are saying and trust your sources, then it doesn't really matter. It's the same way when, like, info you have gets sort of repurposed for blogs and people will get upset. And I'm like, people can do whatever they want. Like, I put out my information. They get to use it however they see fit. They get to respond however. And players should be able to have a voice in their own medical situation. Like, the fact that he responded somewhat vociferously was okay because it's his knee, and he's allowed to have a say, no doubt about it, regardless of what I say publicly.
Well, that's where actually, obviously we know each other for a while and appreciate the friendship, but we're kind of simpatico that way because in general, I'll say stuff and players may not like it. We mentioned Odell Beckham a little bit ago by happenstance. This last offseason, I tweeted something saying, his knee still doesn't look right. He's running well on the treadmill. The video looks sped up in a little bit, and a deceleration and cutting, there's no way that's there yet. He's not there. And he actually responded on Twitter. We developed a little friendship. He said, absolutely, decel and cutting aren't there. But he was like, there's no way that video is sped up. I'm like, no, I'm not accusing you of cheating. I'm just saying when you change formats and phones and onto Twitter, sometimes the speed isn't the same. And we've actually developed a random Twitter friendship after that and texting. So, yeah, I agree with you. And there are athletes that don't like it, and I'm always welcome to set the record straight. Look, we're the same. Prior to this, we were saying J.K. Dobbins, multi-ligament, LCL, ACL included, he's not really going to be 100%. He has a low 6 score or Sports Injury Central score. He's not going to be 100%. Now, he claimed he might not even go on PUP, but the fact is he is on PUP right now. Maybe he meant regular season PUP. But clearly, at the reporting of training camp, he didn't pass his physical. Well, I mean, maybe he'll get there, and we all hope so, but we have our doubts a little bit, and your reporting, your sources actually obviously seem to be correct there.
Yeah, and it's important to note that it is a very serious injury. There's 2 running backs for the Baltimore Ravens had torn ACLs. One was Gus Edwards, who had a clean tear and seems to be doing fine, seems to be on track for week 1. Also on the PUP list, but I don't sense nearly as much sort of apprehension or uncertainty about his knee. And then there's that of J.K. Dobbins, and Dobbins, a bright young player, a budding star. I think a player who's going to have a really good future. It's a significant knee injury. It was an ACL, and it was a lot more. And it's a good reminder that all ACLs are not created equal, and they don't.
Oh, you're still in my line, Ian. I say that all the time. I'm joking. I'm joking.
And it's like the same thing when like a player has surgery. It's like, oh, should make a full recovery. Surgery went great, and it's like sometimes it doesn't. Like they're all individual, and they all have to be taken as such.
Yeah. See Michael Thomas, right? I mean,
had a couple surgeries.
A couple surgeries, and he's a guy ahead of minicamp. We're like, that video when he runs around doesn't look that good to me. Like he's still favoring it. Look, I hope he gets better. Yes, he had a setback and a second surgery, blah, blah, blah. But the way he's tracking and trending, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, when he got hurt, he was like a top 3 receiver in the league. He might be number 3 on his own squad right now with Olave and Jarvis Landry. But we'll see. Maybe he'll get better and better. And you were reporting on that too, so that's another reason last week we were on the same page on some of these and all taking fire from some of the fan bases, and nobody wants the bad news, right? And I hope Michael Thomas outperforms, but not everything is always routine any way that you look at it. Medicine is still more art than complete science, and not all injuries are the same, is the bottom line.
Yeah, and I think with that one, the circumstances were certainly interesting. I mean, he sort of lost touch with the team a little bit, if you remember, in around, it was May or June.
Oh, I remember.
And it was sort of like no one was quite sure how he's doing. He was rehabbing, and then it was not right. And he had to have another surgery, and that was, I would say something that was obviously not good. And for a new coach and Dennis Allen, getting him on the same page, getting him in the building, something that's, I think, really, really positive. For Sean Payton last year, I mean, it was tough to deal with. I mean, this was your probably your best player, and it was tough.
I mean, we chat a lot, and I appreciate you, but I have a little mini bone to pick with you. You broke that Michael Thomas news. I still remember I was at a wedding in Carmel, and I drafted in Scott Fishbowl.
Must be nice.
I had 5-6 more hours on the clock, but I said, just put this pick in because, I know I want Michael Thomas here. And literally 20 minutes later, you had your tweet that he had the surgery. So we still were lucky enough to win the regular season last year, but that one hurt. 3rd-round draft pick, Michael Thomas. Could you have tweeted 20 minutes earlier, Ian? I mean, you probably had the information already.
I had one where it was like 6 or 7 years ago by this point, maybe more, where I had heard that something was not right with Tony Romo's back. And we didn't know what it was, and the team was saying it was fine, but like something was clearly wrong. And it was during a fantasy draft, literally during a fantasy draft. And I ended up reporting that he was not going to be ready to start the season. I believe that's what it was. It was something where his back was just not right. And it was literally during a fantasy draft, and I picked Dak during it, like as the news was breaking and everybody lost their minds. I'm like, what do you mean do? Ignore proper information? Come on, man.
Well, but in this little league this one Scott Fishbowl that I drafted, all my stuff's out on the site. I mean, I panned J.K. Dobbins. I panned these people. I mean, I don't have any secrets. That was pretty timely. That was a pretty good pick. You probably won with that one, right? I mean, that was pretty good.
I did actually win the league that year. It was pretty good.
See, there you go.
Oh, look at all. Yeah, that's good. Another one you've been on fire on, and we've been, once again, simpatico on, and you've been I saw the little conflicting tweets between you and another insider, but you've been all over Jimmy Garoppolo from the beginning, including his original, summer shoulder surgery, timing, and et cetera, in terms of what's happening. What's the latest on your end with Jimmy G?
Yeah, I mean, still trying to figure out what's going to happen when the 49ers report. Still trying to figure out what's next. I mean, my understanding is, as you know, is surgery to repair a torn capsule in his throwing shoulder. Sources were very clear that it was not a rotator cuff surgery. It was not a reparation of the rotator cuff, okay? A repairing of the rotator cuff, okay? but it was a torn capsule, as you know, a very serious injury. Couldn't throw for 4 months. Has now been throwing for about 4 weeks, at a point where he can throw the deep outs and make the long throws, but can't do it on an unlimited fashion. It sounds to me like the rotator cuff is doing well and going to end up being stronger than it previously was, but it's not right now. And so that's why I think you have different views, because can he make the throws in practice? Yes, he could. Could he make 20 of them? I don't think so. And in order to pass a physical, like if you were going to, for instance, trade him, there's a lot more that would have to go into it.
Yeah, I have no idea of the contractual side and what it means, that stuff. You do. But absolutely, you're not going to trade for someone who's not ready to be on the practice field fully, right? And right now, I saw the reports that he was, quote, cleared to practice, but that doesn't mean 100% in practice. And I know your sources are great, and I agree 100% that it wasn't a full-thickness rotator cuff tear or repair surgery. But by video in the Dallas playoff game, that was a cuff contusion, cuff injury. I'm not saying rotator cuff tear that needed surgery, but that would injure the capsule.
Right, that assumes that the injury happened then.
Well, I believe that it did, or we do, based on video and the data. The second half of that game, he was check downs and not so good in the next game either. Of course, he had his thumb issue too, right, that he played with. But that's our assumption based on what we do, but maybe your sources are different. I mean, we didn't see any film. Could it happen outside of football or something else? Could it be cumulative over time, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak? Maybe, yeah, right? I mean, there's all sorts of different things that can happen.
I mean, if you watch him, he misses wild highs sometimes, and, if he had been previously dealing with something like this, that would make sense. He's banged up all year in a variety of ways, and it's funny because, I think Julian Edelman was on a podcast talking about
yes.
Julian Edelman was on a podcast, talking about Garoppolo and playing through things, and it's like, I get it. Like, those guys know a lot more than I do. Played through a lot last year.
Well, that's what we said previously. First of all,
playoffs.
What Edelman said on that I Am Athlete podcast. Look, I like Julian, whatever, good guy, but he misremembers. It was not Jimmy G's non-throwing shoulder that was injured that year when Tom Brady had the suspension. It was his throwing shoulder. So you can have a little more sympathy for a quarterback who injures the AC joint on his throwing shoulder. He's going to not practice all week and all of a sudden be lights out in the game, per se. I mean, but I will defend Jimmy G that certainly over the recent, including these playoffs, he has been tough. He played through the ulnar collateral. He played through the shoulder. And that one was a throwing shoulder injury, third game of the season. And, look, if I was agent, I wouldn't have let him play. If I was doctor, I would have cleared him with an injection. But obviously you got to, a lot of things factor into things. So I think it was unfair. But if people want to judge him that way based on it was his throwing shoulder, then that's fair. But to judge him based on it wasn't his throwing shoulder is unfair to me.
Yeah, and that's, and I think this is you hit on one of the sort of problems, if when you judge a player, you have to take all of it into account, right? Like, we can look at a player's performance and be like, that guy's bad, this guy's good, on and on, up and down, but there's a lot of other circumstances. So, how do you judge Jimmy Garoppolo's run through the playoffs? Well, it's tough because he played well at times, didn't play great at times, was a little consistent, was battling 2 significant injuries. That goes into the thinking, and it really, does. So I don't really criticize players. That's not my job. But it really does make you think twice about these things, about kind of how do I judge this performance? Because you don't always know what's going on. And sometimes, as you know, you find out after the season, this player who didn't look like he was running great actually needs knee surgery or something like that. Right.
And so, look, I'm not a media guy like you are, but, go to some Super Bowls, not the recent ones, right, after the pandemic. The last regular one I went to, Miami. I remember sitting down at a media session during the week. No one was there, so I didn't think I was taking a real reporter's time. I sat down with Mitchell Schwartz. And I know his brother because, Jeff does some media stuff. And I sat down, I introduced myself, and I said, you don't know who I am, but let me tell you, no surprises, Pro Football Doc, orthopedic guy. I know who you are. I'm like, are you mad at me? Like, is that, he goes, no. He goes, I actually like what you do because teams don't always say what we have. You would say what I had. Now, I couldn't come out and agree with you, but we had fan base saying, why isn't he back earlier? But if you look at your stuff, it's more revealing. And so I've always been surprised that for the most part, I know J.K. Dobbins didn't really like what I said, just like he didn't like what you said. But for the most part, I think players appreciate it because they can't toot their own horn that look at me and look at this injury.
Right.
And
sometimes teams will say, like, hey, don't say anything about this because for competitive advantage. But, like, if they're out there looking not great, sometimes they want to know.
I agree with you 100%. Well, anyways, I appreciate the time. I promised you 15 minutes. We're up on it. Anything else that you're going to break that you want to talk about? I mean, we can go on and on. Matthew Stafford's elbow's fine. Tre'Davious White is slow. Bakhtiari's
I have a quick
issues.
question, actually. Denzel Good just retired. I'm a Raider fan, so I gotta ask this question. He had the ACL tear last year. Is he retiring? Is that anything to do with him with the injury?
I had heard that he wasn't feeling great. Now, I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
Right.
I mean, I think the more interesting thing is, does this mean that Dylan Parham's going to start now? Third rounder, really good athlete, promising. Like,
yeah, well, as we all know, the first year back
right.
after an ACL is not great anyway. So maybe a combination of things. Right. It was time there. All right, Ian, really appreciate you. And, hey, we got through this one. No breaking trades. And thank you for your time and working with us. I like the new gear, the new shirts and everything.
They all had them today. Yeah.
You're looking sharp out there.
Very exciting. It means training camp is upon us.
Absolutely. All right, the great Ian Rapoport, thanks for listening. And we'll move on to further football and other things for the Pro Football Doc Podcast after we come back. Well, it's great to have Ian Rapoport on, but we have lots more football to discuss, right, Jacob, Taylor, Justin, guys? Lots more to discuss. Let me start off with John Mechie, Alabama wide receiver, former Alabama wide receiver, top second-round draft pick, Texans. He ended up with leukemia. And this is actually a happy story, I think. It's like no one wants to get leukemia, but this is has happened before. Lymphoma, twice other Texans players, happy endings. So if anything, I say kudos to the medical staff on the Texans. And it happens around the league. As Dr. Ezon, who's now on our Sports Injury Central doctor panel, head medical team position for, decade more than in the NFL. Healthy 23-year-old kids don't get physicals. You're not 23, but you're close. When's the last time you got a physical?
2 years ago, maybe.
Oh, that's not bad. How about you, Taylor?
Probably 4.
Oh, that's actually not too bad. 2 and 4, that's not too bad. But in general, healthy people don't get physicals. And football players get them at the start of the season. He just got one. That's where they probably discovered it on routine blood work and or, symptom check or whatever, screening. Right. And they have it at the end of the football season, and there's an entry physical in the offseason. So they get it a couple times a year. And Dr. Ezon, kudos to him. He's even discovered some cancer in coaches, on routine physicals. So this is routine physicals. I always try and deliver the good news. It is curable, which is great. He can return to football. I think he will. And he doesn't have to push his ACL knee. Mm-hmm. So when he comes back, he's good. Now, the bad news is to get here, it's likely chemo. I'm not trying to get too involved in his personal stuff, but it's not surgery, it's chemo. And, weight loss, muscle wasting, general malaise. I think he's going to miss 2 years at least. I mean, this season, look, take care of yourself. No one cares about football right now. Take care of yourself. But it's a big road to get back full weight, speed, strength, especially at the NFL. The good news is the ACL won't be an issue when he comes back. So,
the Quisenberry too. He was 3 years when he was dealing with his. I know difference.
Lymphoma, leukemia, different. I mean, I'm not trying to get nitpicky and too involved in it, but and you might argue for an offensive lineman even more important because of the weight loss issues that are fairly pronounced. Anyways, So anyways, hopefully he will be fine. Another guy that we can talk about a little bit, Justin Ross.
Another rookie. Yep.
Another rookie wide receiver. He had a foot issue. He had the well-chronicled neck issue by us where we said he's not draftable because we don't think he can pass a physical because multi-level. Who recently said that? Someone recently.
D Ford.
D Ford, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
D Ford said with his neck issues with the 49ers that he could have had surgery, but he didn't want to have it because a second-level fusion, second surgery would disqualify him from the NFL, and he wants to keep playing. Well, Justin Ross, by our third-party information, non-HIPAA violation, because it was congenital, had a multi-level spine fusion. So he already had more than one level the first time. Mm-hmm. That's why I said I'm not sure that he's going to pass an NFL physical ultimately. Yes, he's with the Chiefs, but he probably signed an injury waiver on his neck, and training camp / mini camps are non-contact. But now he's got a re-flare-up of that, probably fifth metatarsal stress fracture in a boot on a rolling cart, scooter kind of thing. And obviously it doesn't look good for him to play this year. I mean, I don't think he would have anyways. But look, teams have a heart. I think it was great to have him sign, but I doubt they had a rider on the foot. The Chiefs are now maybe on the hook for his rookie salary because you can't cut an injured guy. And that's why if you're not going to pass a physical, teams don't always want to take that risk. Something else happens. And that goes into a little bit of the Jimmy G thing that we were talking about earlier, et cetera. Let's see. What else?
We got our PUP list that we're maintaining on our website. You can head to sixscore.com for that. But I think there's been a lot of confusion of, he's on PUP, he's going to miss the first 6 games. Not necessarily right.
The truth is somewhere in the middle. First of all, there's different kinds of PUP. Mm-hmm. There's reserve PUP for the regular season where you miss 6 games. Then there's active PUP, which is what all these guys are going on.
You can come off.
You can come off anytime, and you're part of the 90-man roster. Mm-hmm. So one saying, you guys have probably heard me say this in the NFL, never too high, never too low. You lose a game, the world hasn't ended. You win a game, you're not ready to celebrate.
Right.
And PUP is not great news, especially when, let's say, you're Michael Thomas and coming off all this other stuff. But it's not a death knell either, and that's not what we're saying with this PUP. You can come off any time, but it does signal that you technically, at that moment, didn't pass a physical, which is significant.
That's significant, yeah.
But on the other hand, if you passed a physical, that doesn't mean you're 100% either, right? I mean, Cam Akers passed a physical during the season and played for the Rams after his Achilles and clearly wasn't 100%. But let's take a look at an example of a guy, because I promised it on Twitter, Tre'Davious White. Now, I get fandom, right? We put out that his 6 score is not super high. I don't remember it off the top of my head. 41. And it'll get higher, but because he's a defender and he has to react, and we write about that. Boy, some Bills fans that used to like me don't like me.
What
are you talking about?
Yep.
You know? And what do they say? He's not even going on PUP. He says he's on track and fine. Well, he's on PUP. He's progressing. And I could argue that he's right on track, but on track is not 100%. So if we go to the video and look at it, and the audio guys, I'll just describe it, but video, you can look. He's not there. Even as he walks onto the field, you can see the limp in the gait.
Right.
You can see the atrophy on the left side. And as he does some of the drills, look at it, he's a great athlete. I mean, what he's doing there, in high school, I couldn't do that, okay? But that's not him yet in terms of his skill set, especially on the left side as you see him push off. But another key one is when he's running with the bungee cord.
Right.
Look at how, even with the bungee cord, look at how long it takes him to slow down.
Yep, you can see it.
Can you imagine someone does a hook route on him? He's running full speed. He's got to stop. He's 10 yards down the field.
Yep.
He's not. he's not ready. He's going to go on PUP. He might end up on PUP at the beginning of the season, but that doesn't mean he's not going to round into form down the road.
This will be reserved PUP if he starts the season, yeah. So it'll be 6 games.
Yeah, right now he's on regular PUP, active PUP. He might hit reserve PUP, or they may activate him and use him in spot play and work him in. But you can't judge how he does. And, the most famous example was Darrelle Revis. He was a dominant player like Tre'Davious White. Revis Island.
Absolutely.
After his ACL, he didn't do so well that one year. When he signed the big contract with Tampa after the Jets. And then he got released. Mm-hmm. And then what we were saying, this is pre-Sports Injury Central, but Pro Football Doc Twitter, smart move, the 1-year deal with the Patriots. He proved he could play well in his second year back. And then he got another good-sized deal.
Right.
So this is going to not be Tre'Davious White's best year, but, he's got a reasonable chance to round into form by the end of the season when the Bills really need him for playoffs and so forth. So, but early on, I just don't see him. And by this video, people say, it looks pretty good. What are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, he looks good. He's on track, but he's not ready. He's not anywhere near 100% yet based on that video. We don't want to, not trying to be critical, just factual. You got to give him some time here, especially on defense. When you can't dictate your routes, you have to react, and makes it that much harder.
This was a Thanksgiving ACL tear, right? This was a late half, so
relatively late. Yes,
right.
yes. So that's.
I know it's crossing sports too. I want to mention we said that with Klay Thompson too. I mean, he's coming back from the ACL. He's a defender. The guy with the ball knows where he's going to go. So it's the deceleration and cutting and not knowing how to react.
Clay was pretty good.
Exactly.
But defensively,
shooting,
he wasn't that good.
Absolutely.
I mean, look at defensive example. I mean, there's plenty of examples. I mean, Bud Dupree last year, really good last third or quarter of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Really
4 or
good.
5 games last, yes, absolutely.
First half, really not that good.
Missed multiple games because of the knee rest. Yeah, he wasn't
and
there.
Pedestrian, but late and playoff push looked pretty special.
Right.
So hopefully Tre'Davious White will do the same thing. And, I'm not saying this changes Buffalo's win total or this, that, the other, but you just realistically. But we're going to get to a bunch of analysis. The AFC East is
His stuff is up. Yeah, the
His
Bills
stuff is up.
Yep.
And coming AFC North, South, and then West, and then the NFC. But the field views will be up. And we're going to even do some matchup things this week. I'll give you a little hint. I don't even know who they play week 1, the Bills.
Rams
opening night.
Thursday,
yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Rams opening night.
That's the Cooper Cup.
Yeah, you might want to look at Cooper Cup there on some of the props. I'm just saying. I don't think they're up yet.
They're not, but when they are,
I'm just saying. So
Yep.
we're going to have all sorts of new features this year at Sports Injury Central. And anyways, all right, let's try and maybe move on to anything else for football. We'll move on to some non-football stuff.
I think, we'll just keep maintaining the pup list, track all the training camp stuff going on, but we got baseball going in the background.
Here's our cadence. All our fantasy stuff is up. Go to the carousel on the landing page and look at it.
Search all the players. You'll find everything tagged.
Yep. The team stuff is going up now. Every day, another division.
Right.
And then the following week, the field views will be up, the first version of the field view with the specific scores. And I think you'll really like it. We got player cards attached this year. I mean, totally different look. Kudos to the guys at SIC Score and all the hard work. But more than just football, let's move on to other sports. What do you want to hit on now? Obviously, baseball, any other sport. No hot dog eating contest this week.
No, unfortunately.
No tennis. Although Djokovic is still not allowed to go to the U.S. Open, I guess. But that's a different story. We're not going to get political here.
Over the weekend, we had the UFC, Tom Aspinall, the right knee injury with the kick, and he stepped back. I think a lot of people thought it happened on the kick, but watching the video, you thought different, right, Doc?
Yeah, I mean, this was not a tib-fib fracture on the kick. This is not Conor McGregor. This is not who's the other guy? There's
Brian Ortega just had the shoulder right before, too.
Yeah, but who's the other guy that did all-time guy, tib-fib fracture years ago?
Aldo?
Yeah.
No. Aldo was
Silva,
my guy.
Silva.
Yeah,
right.
Anderson
Silva. Yes, that's what it is. Yep.
No, Aldo's my guy.
Yeah,
the rib fracture before Conor McGregor.
Silva's the one his leg literally snapped. Yes. Yeah.
Look, prisoners of the moment. We're working over the weekend. We're doing the team field views and getting all the 6 scores, and then this UFC thing comes up, right? And
It was London. It was a daytime main event. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
which is weird. But anyways, it looked like on the step back. I don't know if they've reported anything yet. Have they, guys?
They have
No, we have no confirmation.
I mean, I'm more worried about the step back and like a patella tendon rupture, the way that his knee just gives out on him. I don't think it's an ACL. But then my guy Taylor, who I've been working with forever, goes, well, yeah, that's good. But you ever even heard of USC or done anything? And what did I tell you? When you asked me about
you said search my name and Jose Aldo. That's exactly what you said. And I was already doing it, so I found it very easily. You were there.
Yeah, all good. So so that's obviously a big deal, but we'll see what the announcement formally comes out about. But always different sports, different things.
That's a second straight main event that's ended in injury too, which is interesting as well.
Well, UFC's.
Yeah.
I mean, it's brutal, right?
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
it's an interesting sport, no question. And people say, like UFC is almost like CrossFit on steroids. Everything's explosive and it's a different set of injuries, whereas boxing is maybe more tiring, right? I mean, more yoga-esque or hot yoga-esque. That's probably not a great comparison, but what I'm saying is UFC is definitely more traumatic based and because of its mixed martial arts. But UFC fighters can fight more often than boxers. You can't go 10, 12 rounds and come back in 3 months and go 10, 12 rounds again.
Right.
So
It's usually like 2 fights a year if you're a big boxer.
at most, right?
You're right.
So there are some differences, but Sports Injury Central will follow along it all. What else you guys got this week?
We've got a lesser contact sport, baseball. We're continuing to cover. It's
Just with the bat, right? Yeah.
It's with the dog days of summer. There's still like 2 months left. They got the new playoff format where the top 2 teams get byes, and then there's the extra wild card team. So it keeps more action in it and stuff. But we got a lot of coverage there. Steven Matz for the Cardinals had the MCL tear, so anyone hears a tear in the knee and they think the worst. But
well, and I gotta say kudos to everyone and our other baseball docs that have joined us. But we've been pretty good on baseball. I mean, we were 24 hours ahead of the news cycle saying Jazz Chisholm stress fracture on his back, and then the news came out the next day, and then it was 6 weeks. We're like, take the over. I don't know if that shoe was dropped yet, but he's not returning this year with that stress fracture.
I think that was an especially good one. I mean, just for our stuff, we just did it off a tweet. I mean, there's no obvious video of it, stress fracture, and people are just saying, oh, he had a lower back strain, he's going to come back, he's hitting at the All-Star game, he looks fine.
Well, it's a detective clues, right?
Had a little running, cutting issues, but
context clues.
Yeah.
Because you said lower back, you heard follow-up CT,
They
and you
said
were
CT, lower back, right side. Looked at the original video. A few pieces, but that worked out.
Well, DeGrom's been a good one. Tatis a big one. I feel like we've been so well on those timelines. You've basically,
and a lot of people gave us grief on Yordan Alvarez, especially the Houston fans.
Yeah,
were like, oh my gosh.
We got a lot of big fans in Houston, definitely. they love our stuff.
Well, they were like, Alvarez, he hit a bomb. You said he wasn't going to do well. Yep. Look, Alvarez is a great player. I mean, he can, check swing and hit it out sometimes, right?
He's
Opposite
a beast.
field.
Absolutely.
He's a beast. But you guys helped me gather some of this data. There's no question he's hit, since the All-Star break, 2 home runs, right? And a double. I think he's 3 for 9.
3 for 9.
So we gave him, the Pro Baseball Talks, a 6 score for the rest of this season of 67.
Right.
That doesn't mean he can't play. That just means, let's say from a fantasy production perspective, hits, overall production, he's about 2/3 what he normally would be if fully healthy. So in the 5 games since the All-Star break, where he had some rest, he missed the first game of the doubleheader, got 1 pinch hit at bat, walked. Mm-hmm. Did well the second game.
2 for 4. Yep.
2 for 4, did real well.
Double and a homer.
Double and a homer.
Yep.
Thursday got another homer, 1 for 2. Sorry, the Friday, 1 for 2. Saturday, 1 for 3, 2 strikeouts. Mm-hmm. And Sunday, off again. And Dusty Baker said what?
He said they're managing his soreness and that they might have to get out maybe a trade bat because he's not playing as much as they were
he
hoping.
has been the DH 3 of the 5 games since.
Right.
In those 3 games, he's been productive, but we're not that far off in saying about 2/3 is normal production fantasy points.
Got the 4 strikeouts as well. Yeah, he's clips a little higher.
He's a great player. I think maybe people misunderstood what we said when we said 67 is
Well, I don't know what they were expecting. I mean, what do you think he's going to go 0 for 20 and then we're 100% right? You know what I mean?
Well, if we went 0 for 20, we'd be wrong because 67 would be too high.
Yeah, that's true. Yep, you're right. No,
all we're saying is about 2/3 of his production. Yeah, if he was 0 for 20, we'd be dead wrong. We scored him way too high in terms of what's going on. So hopefully that's what we're trying to quantitate for everyone, listeners and viewers and people who play fantasy or use it for gambling in baseball or Astros futures or you name it. It's information. It's all it is. We're a very qualitative stat muse. They're very quantitative to a particular thing. We're forward-looking related to injuries. So you asked about Steven Matz and MCL. There was reports of they're going to find out today whether he needs surgery. He's not going to need surgery. That's the good news. The bad news, he's going to be out a lot longer than 15 days IL. That was an MCL sprain, at least grade 2, thankfully not ACL. What saved him is he was on the dirt and his foot slipped. Now, you could say that injured him because that caused the MCL and the stress, but it also saved him. If I were on the grass and his foot sort of caught like that, he might have tore his ACL. So, but here's the problem. Besides it being grade 2, maybe a bone bruise. Good news, no surgery. But when you're a left-handed pitcher and it's your left knee, when you're pitching out of the stretch, that is a sideways push-off motion to start. That stresses the MCL. So do I think his season is done? No, I think he'll come back. He'll probably be, who knows, in the playoffs, a middle reliever. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, where he is at in the rotation. But he's going to miss a lot more than 15. Maybe he can avoid 60 and be lucky, but he's going to be out multiple weeks, more than just the 2-week, 15-day IL. But no surgery. I don't think his season is over.
Yeah, and the Cardinals are hanging on to that last wild card spot. I think they're game up on Taylor's Phillies, trying to limp until Bryce Harper can rejoin the lineup. Hopefully that's not too long. They got Dakota Hudson coming back from a neck injury. It's going to start, I think, next Saturday. So they got some help coming in the rotation. But they used to be now without Matz. He didn't start. This is his first start since May 22nd. He had the shoulder impingement. And then comes back and gets hurt on freak.
Oh, I know.
Freak swinging bunt to first.
But he's had a history, whole career. He's had some stuff.
Oh, here he goes. Here, history of stuff. Wait. Now I was just about to say, that's not injury prone.
No,
that's bad luck.
I'm just saying unlucky. Yeah, I was saying
that's bad luck. That's not injury prone. They're not linked and related, unless you say he's a klutz or something, tripping all over himself.
I don't think so.
No, I mean that's just pure bad luck. Nothing to do with the other. On a slow roller, made a good pitch, slow roller, covering first base or fielding the ball before the flip. Definitely some bad luck for him.
I think a lot of people are worried about Mike Trout too. Is this upper back spasms going to balloon into something else? I mean, it's moved around to the rib cage. Is that
to trickle? It went from the spasms. Now it's 10 days. He's getting shots. It's
cortisone injection. Yeah. They're hoping to have him back soon, but I mean, the Angels are way out of it. What do they got to play for? Mike Trout's a gamer. He wants to be out there, but
yeah, well. I mean, this is one we'd say we're a little bit off. Once we heard his upper back, we didn't think he'd be very long. It's not a lower back with long-term issues or nerve issues, but it's obviously lasted longer than originally thought. But the rib cage / upper back, they're one and the same. Rib cage goes all the way around. Pretty important twisting. I mean, that's what he does, rotation, and he hits the ball. So, maybe the Angels' record has a little bit to do with it. Why burn him out? Kind of situation, but I still don't have any worry. Look, I don't think the Angels would think about trying to trade him, but any team should want him, including the Angels, the rest of the way.
They're thinking about trading Ohtani, so I don't know what they're.
I don't know. I mean, look, that's contractual, and
he likes in and out too much. They're not trading him.
and you all hated my Tatis trade idea.
Yeah.
We won't go there. I'm not a baseball GM.
We were trying.
I didn't want to tell my son about that. He'd hate me.
He wouldn't be excited about that at all.
And Tatis, I mean, August 7th is 5 months. We said 4 to 6. That's probably his target, even though always optimistic. I feel great. I'm ready to go. I feel great. But we'll see. They're 4 and change now and approaching 5 months. We got anything else? We want to go to some Beast of the Week nominations or anything?
Yeah, I was going to ask about Michael King real quick. We had an article on him about, I mean, it's just anytime you hear of a pitcher fracturing an elbow on a pitch, it's just questions run through your mind. How does that happen?
Well, there pretty much has to be a pre-existing something, okay? I mean, you don't fracture an elbow without there's something pre-existing, a stress this or something, some weakness. The very famous, you guys probably weren't even born when it happened, Dave Dravecky and his arm going in circles. And there was a Houston pitcher, too, that something like that happened.
There was a Rays guy, too. It's like Tony Saunders, I think it was.
Underlying weakness in the bone, like a tumor that weakened the bone, and then it broke with rotation of the pitch. So I don't know what the deal is with Michael King. He did have elbow stress issues a couple of years ago. They didn't specify the type of fracture, speculating it could be a medial epicondyle avulsion fracture that might need surgery to have it pinned. But the good news about that is that even if it is that, and what attaches to the medial epicondyle? The Tommy John ligament. But having a fracture is way better than the Tommy John. To use an analogy, what's better if you pull a small tree out by its roots, or that you chop the tree down? Pull it out by the roots, you can transplant it and have that live and grow pretty quickly. And cutting the tree, I mean, obviously it's done, right? And so that's the difference between a Tommy John ligament rupture, call that the tree trunk, versus an avulsion fracture of the medial epicondyle, call that the root system, the bone. You can reattach the bone, and it heals more quickly. So there's some optimism he'll be ready to start of next season. He's done for this season. So that's the fine line differences. But we don't have an X-ray, and, obviously I'm assuming it's a medial epicondyle avulsion fracture, but we'll see.
All right, let's get to Beast of the Week then. I think we have a runner-up, and then we have the top nominee. I think the top nominee is on everyone's mind as training camp ramps up. But we'll go to the honorable mention first. Myron Rolle, former Steeler.
You know what? Amazing story. Look, he's a neurosurgery resident. We all love the former Chiefs. Tardif. Yep. Laurent Duvernay-Tardif. He opted off. He opted out to work in a nursing home, after he was, quote, a doctor. But he hasn't finished or even started his residency yet. And I'm not sure what his residency will be in. Myron Rolle is a Rhodes Scholar. Right. And he's a neurosurgery resident. I mean, that story is so great. We got to get him on the show sometime. And I wouldn't insult Myron Rolle with the Beast of the Week. It's the Beast of a decade or career. I mean, this
is like Leonardo da Vinci, right? Like, he can do it all.
I mean, it's great.
Awesome.
I mean, it's great. I mean, look, he's so smart. He's a neurosurgeon. He didn't lower himself to be a bone guy.
Right.
So good for him. But I'd love to reach out to him and have him on and talk about the different things, because he's the real deal. That's freaking awesome. But that's beneath him to be Beast of the Week. He's Beast of
the Century right
now. Or whatever, with those two amazing careers. You talk about 1%ers. That puts him in the 0.00001%.
Right.
I mean, 99.99999, whatever, to be doing that. So good one, but that's why I don't think.
I was saying, a lottery ticket does not exist, right?
It's a wrong. That's winning the lottery. You have a better chance of winning the lottery than doing what he did. I mean, there's a lot more lottery winners than there are
than what he's doing.
What he's doing. There's no question.
All right, Beast of the Week. I think everyone's seen the clip. Anyone in NFL circles.
Definition of a beast.
Yeah.
Right?
Anyone drafting fantasy looking for an edge. There's
Scott Fish,
slow info flow
Scott
right now.
Fish, we have him.
Nick Chubb squatting 610 pounds. I mean, is the Beast of the Week? Is the Beast of the Week Nick Chubb, or is it the bar?
I mean, look, if you put that in a movie, you'd say that's rubber and that's an effect, right?
He looked so effortless doing it, which is crazy.
But that bar still can't bend that much. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of bar that was. Some weightlifter can tell me, but that bar was like rubber.
It was bending. Yeah.
That rubber is a beast.
Yeah.
Nick Chubb's a beast. That's unbelievable. But I got to give a shout out. So Nick Chubb is our official beast of the week. That bar, the fact that it stayed.
The two guys spotting him looked like they were struggling.
But let me tell you something. I got to give a shout out. Okay, let me ask you this question. I don't. You got to do the math, but if you fill up the rack with 45s, how much weight is that? All the way to the thing.
I can't even do that math right now. We're not math majors.
But but if you look at the bar in Nick Chubb, it's basically full on both sides. I got to give a shout out to my guy. The strongest guy I've ever seen in the NFL is a D lineman that played for the Chargers when I first joined them, John Perella. Look him up. Country strong, Nebraska. He's coached some in college now. I witnessed it. Maybe it was a different bar. Maybe it was a different thing. He would rack the bar full on both sides.
Oh, he's a Raider great too. I remember that name. 2 years. I remember. Gotcha.
Raiders poached him late.
Yep.
Yes.
2 years. Yep. He was a Charger. You're right.
He'd rack the rack full, and he'd bring tape, the electrical tape, silver stuff, whatever, and tape another 45 on the top of it.
Oh my God.
And he wouldn't squat the thing. He'd overhead press the thing.
My.
I mean, if I had not seen it, I would not believe it.
Yeah.
There's no question with Nick Chubb, he's the beast of the week.
Are you worried about him medically if you walked in and saw that?
I mean, if I had seen it, I wouldn't believe it. So,
Yeah.
Chubb is the beast of the week, and but when Perella was doing this, I don't think everyone had cell phones and stuff.
Right.
I think I still had a flip phone. It was that long ago, so it's a different world. Otherwise, that would be 30 million views on YouTube. I mean,
Absolutely.
He's pretty good there.
The original beast. Yeah.
All right, guys, a good week here. Now remember, we have all our division stuff going up. Every day, another division. Started with AFC East, every day marching through the AFC, then NFC. All this week at Sports Injury Central, SICScore.com. Team scores, field views coming next, new features, player cards, all sorts of things coming at SICScore.com. And thanks to Ian Rapoport. I know he's always busy. And thanks to him for coming on here. And we'll see you throughout this week and certainly next week for the Pro Football Doc Sports Injury Central podcast.